Hello and welcome to Service Above Self. My name is Clark Mason. This time on Service Above Self, we have a fairly serious subject to talk about in domestic abuse. And here to help us talk about that, we have Ann Osborne from the Network Against Domestic Abuse, which services North Central Connecticut. Ann, welcome to Service Above Self.
Thank you very much.
Nowadays, we're hearing more and more about different types of abuse, and abuse seems as if it's becoming a bigger thing than ever. Can you tell us about the Network Against Domestic Abuse and how it all got started?
Absolutely. 25 years ago, some women in the Enfield area got together to try to help put together an organization that would help women who were victims of domestic violence along with their children. Out of this came a nonprofit agency. All our services are free. Our main mission is the belief that all people have the right to live in a non-threatening environment. We understand that relationships can be very different as people see it outside than behind closed doors, and that it doesn't make a difference what race you are, color, creed, religion. It happens to everybody and in all communities. We service 6 towns of Enfield, East Windsor, Somers, Suffield, Stafford, and Windsor Locks. And it can be both verbal and emotional, and 90% of abuse goes unreported. The worst time for a woman is when she has had enough and is in the process of leaving. It leaves scars with children that carry over into their adulthood. It's a long-range problem, and unfortunately in the last 6 months to a year, there's been a lot of deaths because of it. So our goal with the network over the period of 25 years is to become more community-oriented, to try to get out there and educate people on what it is, and it's not going away.
Right, and I would tend to think that it's probably in many cases the most unimaginable type of horrors that
Absolutely,
some of these people face.
Absolutely, and what some of the women that come in, their stories are horrendous, and it makes you appreciate what you have and to work harder to get the funding and the awareness that we need in order to get rid of it. And unfortunately, we're not going anywhere soon. So.
Now, I'm sure that every case is different, but could you give us an idea of typically how your organization first encounters the people that you service?
There's basically 2 ways that we have clients that come in. Either we have a 24-hour hotline where somebody either calls 211, is given the number through the police departments, that goes right to a 24/7 hotline. That we have a 15-bed shelter, and if we feel that the person that calls the hotline needs immediate safety, we can either find her a place with her children at our place, or we can find some place for her. The other avenue of clients that we see are through the court systems. We have 2 advocates that work out of Enfield and Rockville, and we are there to advocate for them so that they know the process. Normally when there's a situation where there's violence in the home, it's a dual arrest, and they sort it out at the police department, who's the victim, who's the perpetrator, and a lot of times the court will order the victim to come to our office to talk to our adult advocate, which is good because a lot of times she doesn't know she doesn't know it's a problem.
Right, and what's more, once this whole process starts with an arrest and the ensuing court things, it'd probably be nice to have somebody just let you know how things are going to work out.
Absolutely, absolutely. We give them the whole, and these women are scared. They've probably been up all night sitting in either a jail cell, or their boyfriend, spouse has been in a jail cell. They're regretting calling the police. A lot of times the children are the one that call the police. They're afraid that their mom is going to get hurt. They call the police, and they deny, oh, he didn't hurt me. It was my fault, that kind of thing. And we really, when the client comes into our office, we try to get them to see it's not normal, it's not right, and how can we help her through. We don't do any of the legal representation or anything like that, but we have a lot of avenues that we can send them to, make phone calls, that kind of thing. Once a woman comes into our shelter, we have housing avenues, we have places that they can go to look for, steady jobs, that kind of thing. So we're more advocating, we're giving them information that they're going to need to get themselves into an independent life for themselves, and woman-defined advocacy, we call it, to try to give them some kind of normal life.
And I would imagine that transition is very difficult. You talk about, the sense of failure, once you've actually come to the point where you realize that you need to leave. I would tend to think that having to give up your commitment to your relationship will lead you to, a great feeling of failure, and then to be able to take the next step from there to picturing a life beyond what you've had before.
Absolutely.
Is going to probably be a kind of a grieving process, I would tend to think.
And the hard part is too that when you're at that point, you don't have money. A lot of these women don't have a job. They don't feel they're good enough to work or to take care of themselves, and they feel that they are totally dependent on the abuser, which is the way the abuser wants it. And they have no way of financially getting out of there. And that's probably the biggest thing that keeps them is the financial and the fear. The fear that they'll get their, a lot of the abusers will say, I'm gonna take your children away. Mm-hmm. You'll never see the kids again. That's the fear. You'll never make it on your own. And a lot of women don't go to their family or friends to let them know about it because of shame. They're embarrassed, mm-hmm. and they've just gotten it into their heads that it's their fault and they're the ones that are in the wrong. So that's where, once we have the women under our wings, so to speak, that's where we hope that we can give them the courage and the fortitude to see the future, and that you have there is a possibility you can have a really good future, either by yourself or with your children, one or the other.
So in what ways does your organization do that? Are there sessions where they get to meet with other folks in similar situations?
In our, we have some groups that meet 1 or 2 times a night it's sporadic throughout the year. That the groups, it's a large group of women that meet with our adult advocate, and they discuss their issues, discovering what they can do to get themselves to a point where they can either leave, or once they do leave, they can lead a normal life, so to speak. We also have in our shelter, there are quote-unquote rules and regulations where they have to go to a group meeting, they have individual counseling, they have to seek employment, they have to seek housing, we try to gear them to an independent life. Mm-hmm. You need to do the work in order for you to get to this point. We will guide you and show you where to go and how to get there, but you need to do the work. So we're not quote unquote babysitters, and they make their own meals. We provide transportation when they need it to the doctors or to their attorneys or that kind of thing. But they also need to know where the bus line is. And we have a lot of women that come in with their own cars that do have jobs, and they have a certain time they need to be into the shelter at night or check in. And we are happy to say that Connecticut is now been approved for 24/7 shelter care. So we will eventually, in the next month, have a staff member that's 24/7 at the shelter rather than just a regular 10-hour day.
So what type of things are normally discussed at a counseling meeting like that?
It's hard to say because I'm not a counselor and I'm not really in those meetings, but we really try to push for that term again, the woman-defined advocacy. What can you do for yourself to make you feel better about yourself, make you feel that it's not your fault that you've been in this situation, and how to in the future avoid such a situation. And your children come first. You know, are you protecting your child against, you know, something that could really hurt them for life? And get your children into counseling. You know, counseling is a good thing. Counseling is not, you know, something to be ashamed of. And we want women to feel that it's not an embarrassment. It's not something that they did wrong. You know, this is a human being does not get treated like this. And that's what we try to teach them and show them. And you know, that's our main goal is just to help them understand why things went bad and what they can do about it to help themselves.
Very good. When we come back, we'll talk about the very origins of domestic abuse and how this all gets started. So we'll be back in a minute.
When you start with Rotary, good things happen. Rotary is ordinary people working together to clean the environment, stop disease, and accomplish other extraordinary things.
Could you dedicate yourself to a worthy cause? Could you go the distance to keep a child healthy? Could you travel to the other side of the world to help eliminate polio? Could you? A Rotary member could. We're dedicated to connecting children with vaccinations and ending polio worldwide. All it takes is one person to make a difference, like me, like you. Could you help change the world? Will you? Rotary, humanity in motion.
Welcome back to Service Above Self. I'm Clark Mason. We're here with Ann Osborne talking about domestic abuse, and Ann's from the Network Against Domestic Abuse in Enfield, Connecticut. One of the things that you'd mentioned earlier on was the fact that in many cases the domestic violence has its roots in childhood. And how does that work?
Any child that's brought up in an atmosphere of domestic violence is unfortunately going to have a tendency to have some of those roots ingrained in him. It does not happen all the time, obviously, but a lot of the violence that we see with the abuser, they have a history of domestic abuse in their past. So this is where our focus is, to try to get to the younger generation, because we find that more and more younger kids from, say, middle school are starting to show aggressive behavior more now than ever. So we have really started a push with teenage dating violence. Like I said, it's not just teenagers, it's a little bit younger than that, going out and talking to teenagers about teenage abuse. What is it? Texting, Facebooking, just aggressive behavior in that manner.
Right.
It may not be physical, but it is definitely a mental abuse where, an ex-boyfriend is just consistently all day, all night, texting, nasty, vicious things, through their phones. And, it's very difficult for kids these days. And unfortunately, what they're seeing at home is okay. So they're bringing it into their growing up period of trying to find out where they fit in the dating scene and with girls and that kind of thing. So it's becoming a rise, and we need to make people aware of it.
Yeah, it's certainly very different than it might have been in the old days, so to speak, where, perhaps you could have been, harassed in the hallways of the schoolyard, but, once you got to go home, it pretty much stopped. So now, your phone is ringing and coming up with a text, or, you've got to check your email, and so these things are coming in different forms, and Facebook or whatever it happens to be, which is certainly not the intent of these things that they've made, but people do use them that way. And so, this is just a culture that people think it's okay to berate people via these means.
And you see it on TV all the time, so if it's on TV, it's okay, and parents aren't paying attention enough to what the kids are seeing and reacting to, and if they paid a little bit more attention, maybe they'd nip it in the bud.
Right.
But unfortunately, you have a lot of households that are broken homes, that there's a lot of stress between the parents, especially with the economy in the last couple of years. You've got parents that are out of work, that have never had anger issues, that now you do. So the home situation has a lot to do with it. And, they're bringing it into their personal lives, and as they're growing up with these anger issues, it's becoming a norm, and and we're finding a lot of peer groups though that are starting to really stomp on their own peers with the violence, and that's really becoming a popular issue in the high schools. Peers working with peers to calm them down, to work with them, and to try to stop some of this violence.
So that's one of the things that your organization does, is to go out into the community and to be proactive and try to prevent this behavior from starting really in the first place.
Absolutely.
Through some of your educational programs that you do.
Yes, we have a wonderful community educator named Barbara. She is constantly out in the community via either school systems or just any group basically that'll call us and need us to come in and talk. One of the things we're going to be doing in September rather, we've decided to put together a panel of several staff members and guests and invite anybody who would like to come to talk about domestic violence and how it affects teenage dating. You can bring your children as young as you'd like. We are going to have babysitting services. We are doing this in conjunction with the East Windsor High School and the town of East Windsor. The Broadbrook Rotary Club is sponsoring this, and it's going to be just a general question and answer forum. We're not going to have a real, set thing of what we're going to talk about. We want questions from the community. We want to inform the community. What are your children doing? We want to ask the kids, what to look for when you start dating, in junior high school, how do you know the difference between just a bad date and an abusive date? Mm-hmm. What are the signs to look for? If you do find that you are being the abuser, how do you get help for yourself so you don't turn into your father or something like that? So it's going to be September 21st at the East Windsor High School Auditorium. There is no charge. We're asking for a donation of canned goods. We'd really like to push everybody to come, including children. We are going to have babysitting service there. It's from 6:30 to 8, and if anybody has any questions, they can either call the East Windsor Board of Education or our office, and we'll be more than happy to give you any information that you'd like on it.
Okay, and there's a phone number that they can give you guys
yes,
a call.
Yes, it's 860-763-7430, and that'll come right to our office. Or you can go on to www.networkagainstdomesticabuse.org.
Are there other programs that you run in the community that are
Absolutely.
similar
We
to
have two programs that, one we're in the process of working on now is called our Back to School program. And we have sponsors that donate backpacks, school supplies, and first day of clothing for some of our shelter and community children. Last year, we were able to provide 139 children with backpacks and items. And we also have a holiday program, which is my favorite because it's just, you know, you get moms who come in and cry, you know, and we have amazing sponsors for that program because our sponsors realize that these children, it may be the only gifts they get for
Right.
Christmas. So we have, we were able to provide 184 children with Christmas last year. And that just, it's awesome. It's just, you know, we have a lot of corporate sponsors. We have a lot of single individual sponsors. And the nice thing is that we have a lot of families that make this a family Christmas thing to do.
Yeah, because I would tend to think that, you know, for the children in a situation like this, the difficulty is that if they've had to go into the shelter that you provided for their own safety, you've had to separate them from their friends,
Everything.
from their families.
Yeah.
And so where you might associate, you know, the normal Christmas gifts or back to school gifts coming from is not there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they have the additional stigma of, you know, not having new clothes to go back to school with or not getting something at Christmas.
And we give them a chance,
Yeah.
you know, and the moms are just, you know, we have a lot of moms that come in and they cry, you know, because they're so happy that somebody cared enough to take care of their children. And we have several moms that our sponsors buy for too. We had 40 moms that we were able to give gifts to last year, and they may not ever get a gift from anybody else, you know, which
Right.
is really nice. And we give them the paper to wrap it with, and the bows and the tape and everything they need. So it's really a special time of year for them because a lot of times it's the hardest time of year.
Right, absolutely,
Yeah.
because you're not going to be able to share that in many cases
Yeah.
with your family for safety
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun because we also see the families that bring in the gifts. They have their children help with it, and the kids carry the presents into us, and you know, and we talk to the kids and thank the kids, and you know, it's a really great program. We also have different fundraising. We have two main events throughout the year: our annual golf tournament, which was just this past Monday, which is a lot of fun. It's an all-day golf tournament where we have sponsors and teams of 4. We had 112 golfers this year, which was very good at the Elmcrest Golf Club. We've been doing that for 17 years, and that's run by our executive director, Kathy Barron. And then we have our annual fall foliage car show, which is at the Stafford Springs at Sun Valley Resort. We've been very lucky to have this is our 3rd year, and we have major sponsors such as Mohegan Sun, Porter and Chester, Trantolo and Trantolo.
Excellent.
So we have a really good backing for this car show. Last year we were thrilled. We had 223 cars that came, so we might get too big this year, and that's what we're hoping for.
That would not be a wonderful problem.
But it's a great day. It's very inexpensive. And then we have in September, or the first weekend of October, we have a community pancake breakfast with parishes from the 6 communities. That is our kickoff for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is all of October. And we provide sausage and pancakes to the parishes that are involved, and they put on a breakfast and donate the money that they make to our organization. We have a lot of other smaller things. We have a couple golf tournaments that area women's clubs do for donations for us. We have a group that does a rock and roll revival. We have a motorcycle group that helps us out. The Channel 3 Kids Camp helps us out. So we have a lot of really good people out there. And we have our Irish night, which will never go away in March, and people, we sell out within 3 weeks when that comes around. So it's nice. We try to we don't have a lot as far as overburdening people with, you know, gimme, 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 gimme. You know, we just have we have a lot of fun events that people enjoy going to. But we also need to let people know that it's very difficult being nonprofit.
Right.
You know, people, it's very difficult for people to open their pocketbooks. So when you have 5 agencies that you're looking to give to, we understand that you're only giving to 1 or 2, and we just we hope that we're critical enough to to warrant a second look, so to speak.
So if someone wanted to lend a hand or to make a donation, who do they contact?
They can contact our office directly. We are located at 139 Hazard Avenue in Enfield, Building 3. And we also have a PayPal account on our website, and or just send us a check. We also take items such as laundry detergent, personal care items. Unfortunately, we get a lot of brand new clothes throughout the year, and we don't take used furniture, we don't take used clothes, used stuffed animals, that kind of thing. But a lot of, we get a lot of donations of brand new toys and all kinds of gifts throughout the year, and especially at Christmas time. People say, well, you know, we brought in these things for this child, but I got all these things on sale, and we want to give them. So we are really good with that. But the things we run out of a lot are the toiletries and, you know, paper products for the shelter and laundry detergent, that kind of thing, because this is their home. You know,
and so those things are helpful.
Absolutely,
to your
absolutely. Needs. Even like things like stamps, you know, things that you take for granted that you just don't think about. But you kind of have to imagine, you know, being pulled out of your home. You've got the clothes on your back 95% of the time. And we're lucky enough to have a mall where we can supply the women with some new clothes and clothes for the kids and that kind of thing. So, you know, you just have to kind of imagine that scenario, being pulled out of your home and into a safe place. And
well, that's wonderful that your organization could provide that for the people who have suffered this abuse and give them some hope. So, Ann, thank you for coming in today and telling us all about that. So, once again, for all of us here at Service Above Self, I hope you learned a little bit about domestic abuse and some of the ways to prevent it. And until next time, we're encouraging you to find a worthy cause and lend a helping hand.